Hello, welcome to the first video for Julius Caesar Act I. Now, what we're going to be seeing here is a full text original copy of the play Julius Caesar. But rather than just reading the text, or listening to the text, or watching the text, or reading the spark notes, you're essentially going to be doing all of those things at once. Let me show you how it works. Let's take a look at the screen over here. This is Julius Caesar Shakespeare in Bits. Now, most of the time, I'm going to be down here in the corner. Every now and then, you're going to see me pop up and answer questions if you have them. Let's take a look at the play. We want to start from Act 1, Scene 1. Now, let's take a look at the screen before we get started. You'll notice I have my player right here. There's going to be a sort of corny cartoon version. Use that as a frame of reference. If you get confused about who's talking and what they're saying, take a look at the cartoon. Over here we have the full text. You'll notice that we have the character's name written. We have some text here as well, some stage directions, and then we actually have some terms which will be translated, and you'll notice that if I mouse over some of these letters, there are notes that will pop up. Now, it's going to be very difficult for you to read the notes and read the play at the same time. So what do I recommend? When you see my mouse page over one of the notes, probably consider pausing the recording, reading the note, and then continuing. After all, you do have that control. If you miss something, you can always rewind and watch it again. I think you get the idea. And hey, if you don't, just start this video over. So let's get started with Julius Caesar, Act I, Scene 1.
Hence! Home, you idle creatures! Get you home! Is this a holiday? What, know you not, being mechanical, you ought not walk upon a labouring day without the sign of your profession? Speak! What trade art thou?
Why, sir, a carpenter.
Where is thy leather apron and thy rule? What dost thou with thy best apparel on? You, sir, what trade are you?
Truly, sir, in respect of a fine workman, I am but, as you would say, a cobbler.
But what trade art thou? Answer me directly.
A trade, sir, that I hope I may use with a safe conscience, which is indeed, sir, a mender of bad souls.
What trade, thou knave, thou naughty knave, what trade?
Nay, I beseech you, sir, be not out with me. Yet if you be out, sir, I commend you.
What meanst thou by that? Mend me, thou saucy fellow.
Why, sir, cobble you.
Thou art a cobbler, art thou?
Truly, sir, all that I live by is with thee all. I meddle with no tradesmen's matters, nor women's matters. But withal, I am indeed, sir, a surgeon to old shoes. When they are in great danger, I recover them. That's proper men as ever trod upon neat's leather have gone upon my handiwork.
But wherefore art not in thy shop today? Why dost thou lead these men about the streets?
Truly, sir, to wear out their shoes to get myself into more work. But indeed, sir, we make holiday to see Caesar and to rejoice in his trade.
Wherefore rejoice? What conquest brings he home? What tributaries follow him to Rome to grace in captive bonds his chariot wheels? You blocks, you stones, you worse than senseless things. Oh, you hard hearts, you cruel men of Rome, knew you not Pompey? Many a time and oft have you climbed up to walls and battlements, to towers and windows, yea, to chimney tops, your infants in your arms, and there have sat the livelong day with patient expectation to see great Pompey pass the streets of Rome. And when you saw his chariot but appear, have you not made an universal shout? The Tiber trembled underneath her banks to hear the replication of your sounds made in her concave shores. And you now put on your best attire. And you now cull out a holiday. And you now strew flowers in his way that comes in triumph over Pompey's blood. Begone! run to your houses. Fall upon your knees, pray to the gods to intermit the plague that needs must light on this ingratitude.
Go, go, good countrymen, and for this fault assemble all the poor men of your sort, draw them to Tiber banks, and weep your tears into the channel, till the lowest stream do kiss the most exalted shores of all. See where their basest metal be not moved. They vanish, tongue-tied in their guiltiness. Go you down that way towards the capital. This way will I. Disrobe the images if you do find them decked with ceremonies.
May we do so? You know it is the feast of Lupercal.
It is no matter. Let no images be hung with Caesar's trophies. I'll about and drive away the vulgar from the streets. So do you, too, when you perceive them thick. These growing feathers, plucked from Caesar's wing, will make him fly an ordinary pitch. Who else would soar above the view of men and keep us all in servile fearfulness?
Okay, so we have Act 1, Scene 1, and we start with two characters, Merulus and Flavius. You will never see these characters again. They're not that important. And the characters they were talking to, the cobbler and others, they're not that important either. Shakespeare liked to start his plays simple. They like to ease the audience in because the audience is not used to seeing a play at this point. You may have noticed some of the funny banter going back and forth. Again, that doesn't have much to do with the plot. It's simply to show off some of Shakespeare's style, perhaps to make a point about perhaps the commoners being more advanced than the rich people, but really it doesn't have anything to do with the plot, and that's okay. Hopefully, though, you got a sense of how some people react to Caesar and how the common people react to Caesar. Let's move on then to Scene 2, where we get to meet Caesar, his best friend Brutus, and a co-worker of theirs named Cassius, who, like these gentlemen, is not too happy with what's been going on.
Calpurnia?
Peace hold! Caesar speaks!
Calpurnia.
Here, my lord.
Stand you directly in Antonio's way when he doth run his course. Antonio.
Caesar, my lord.
Forget not in your speed, Antonio, to touch Calpurnia, for our elders say the Baron, touched in this holy chase, shake off their sterile curse.
I shall remember. When Caesar says do this, it is performed.
Set on, and leave no ceremony out.
So you'll notice here that Caesar instructs Mark Antony to touch his wife while Mark Antony is running in a race. You might be thinking, well, what does this mean? Well, this is the Feast of Lupercal on February 15th, and it was a feast about fertility. So it was thought that if Mark Antony is able to touch Caesar's wife during the race, then she will no longer be barren or unable to bear children and be cured of her illness. Obviously, this is superstitious. It's important to remember how much Caesar cares about superstition here. He may change his mind later.
Huh? Who calls?
Bid every noise be still! Peace yet again!
Who is it in the press that calls on me? I hear a tongue shriller than all the music. Cry Caesar! Speak. Caesar is turned to hear.
Beware the eyes of March!
Brutus, what man is that?
A soothsayer bids you beware the Ides of March.
Set him before me, Cassius. Let me see his face.
Fellow, come from the throng. Look upon Caesar.
What sayst thou to me now? Speak once again.
Beware the Ides of March.
He is a dreamer. Let us leave him. Pass!
Isn't that interesting? Caesar just told his wife to get touched by Mark Antony to cure her sterile nature, and yet he's shrugging off this soothsayer because he's a dreamer. Seems a little hypocritical to me.
Will you go see the order of the course?
Not I.
I pray you do.
I am not gamesome. I do lack some part of that quick spirit that is in Antony. Let me not hinder, Cassius, your desires. I'll leave you.
Brutus, I do observe you now of late. I have not from your eyes that gentleness and show of love as I was wont to have. You bear too stubborn and too strange a hand over your friend that loves you.
Cassius, be not deceived. If I have veiled my look, I turn the trouble of my countenance merely upon myself. Vexed I am of late with passions of some difference, conceptions only proper to myself, which give some soil, perhaps, to my behaviours. But let not, therefore, my good friends be grieved, among which number, Cassius, be you one, nor construe any further my neglect, than that poor Brutus, with himself at war, forgets the shows of love to other men.
Alright, so before we continue, let me introduce these characters. We have Cassius, who you see on the screen in front of you. Cassius is a member of the Inner Sanctum. He works closely with Caesar, and you're going to see that Cassius is more emotional, a bit more manipulative. Perhaps you could even say the villain of this story. On the other hand, you have Brutus. You've probably heard of him before. Brutus is often used in the quote, "Et tu, Brute?" which you'll actually hear in this play. While the play is called The Tragedy of Julius Caesar, Brutus is actually the main character. Brutus is written as someone who's very stoic, which means he shows no emotion. He's very serious, he's concerned, he's thoughtful, he thinks about everything he's going to do before he does it. Watch for these traits in these two men. They're going to have a very long conversation about Caesar, about the state of the country, and about what is best to be done to solve it.
Then, Brutus, I have much mistook your passion, by means whereof this breast of mine hath buried thoughts of great value, worthy cogitations. Tell me, good Brutus, can you see your face?
No, Cassius, for the eye sees not itself, but by reflection, by some other things.
'Tis just. And it is very much lamented, Brutus, that you have no such mirrors as will turn your hidden worthiness into your eye, that you might see your shadow. I have heard, where many of the best respect in Rome, except immortal Caesar, speaking of Brutus and groaning underneath this age's yoke, have wished that noble Brutus had his eyes.
Into what dangers would you lead me, Cassius? That you would have me seek into myself for that which is not in me.
Therefore, good Brutus, be prepared to hear. And since you know you cannot see yourself so well as by reflection, I, your glass, will modestly discover to yourself that of yourself which you yet know not of. And be not jealous on me, gentle Brutus. Were I a common laughter, or did use to stale with ordinary oaths my love to every new protester, if you know that I do fawn on men, and hug them hard, and after scandal them, or if you know that I profess myself in banqueting to all the rout, then hold me dangerous.
What means the shouting? I do fear the people choose Caesar for their king.
Aye, do you fear it? Then must I think you would not have it so?
I would not, Cassius. Yet I love him well. But wherefore do you hold me here so long? What is it that you would impart to me? If it be aught toward the general good, set honour in one eye and death in the other, and I will look on both indifferently. For let the gods so speed me as I love the name of honour more than I fear death.
I know that virtue to be in you, Brutus, as well as I do know your outward favour. Well, honour is the subject of my story. I cannot tell what you and other men think of this life, but for my single self I had as lief not be, as live to be in awe of such a thing as I myself. I was born free as Caesar, so were you. We both have fed as well, and we can both endure the winter's cold as well as he. For once, upon a raw and gusty day, the troubled Tiber chafing with her shores, Caesar said to me, "Darest thou, Cassius, now leap in with me into this angry flood and swim to yonder point?" Upon the word, accoutred as I was, I plunged in and bade him follow. So indeed he did. The torrent roared, and we did buffet it with lusty sinews, throwing it aside and stemming it with hearts of controversy. But ere we could arrive the point proposed, Caesar cried, "Help me, Cassius, or I sink." I, as Aeneas, our great ancestor, did from the flames of Troy upon his shoulder the old Anchises bear, so from the waves of Tiber did I the tired Caesar. And this man is now become a god, and Cassius is a wretched creature and must bend his body if Caesar carelessly but nod on him. He had a fever when he was in Spain, and when the fit was on him I did mark how he did shake. 'Tis true, this god did shake. His coward lips did from their colour fly, and that same eye, whose bend doth awe the world, did lose his lustre. I did hear him groan. Aye, and that tongue of his that bade the Romans mark him and write his speeches in their books. Alas, it cried, give me some drink, Titinius, as a sick girl, ye gods! It doth amaze me. A man of such a feeble temper should so get the start of the majestic world, and bear the palm alone.
So far we have seen Cassius flatter Brutus, tell him what wonderful things people say about him. And then he's also said very negative things about Caesar. He's explained how Caesar was unable to swim and almost drowned. He explained how Caesar became sick with the fever, and how Caesar is physically weak at times, because keep in mind, Caesar would have been around 50 years old during this point, and back then 50 years old is much older than it is today. So why do you think Cassius would have been making this contrast? What is he trying to get Brutus to say or think or do? Cassius is very clever. He's choosing his words carefully. Let's see what he's up to next.
Another general shout. I do believe that these applauses are for some new honours that are heaped on Caesar.
Why, man, he doth bestride the narrow world like a colossus, and we petty men walk under his huge legs and peep about to find ourselves dishonourable graves. Men at some time are masters of their fates. The fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars, but in ourselves that we are underlings.
That's an important line there. The fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars, but in ourselves that we are underlined. Think about what that could mean if something is in the stars. It usually means that something is destined to happen. It's fated to happen. So what do you think Cassius means here when he says it is not the fault in our stars, but in ourselves? What does that imply it is necessary for them to do to solve their problem?
Brutus and Caesar. What should be in that Caesar? Why should that name be sounded more than yours? Write them together. Yours is as fair a name. Sound them. It doth become the mouth as well. Weigh them. It is as heavy. Conjure with them. Brutus will start a spirit as soon as Caesar. Now in the names of all the gods at once, upon what meat doth this our Caesar feed that he is grown so great? Age, thou art shamed. Rome, thou hast lost the breed of noble bloods. When went there by an age since the great flood, but it was famed with more than with one man? When could they say, till now, that talked of Rome, that her wide walks encompassed but one man? Now is it Rome indeed, and room enough, when there is in it but one only man. Oh, you and I have heard our fathers say, there was a Brutus once, that would have brooked the eternal devil to keep his state in Rome as easily as a king.
That you do love me, I am nothing jealous. What you would work me to, I have some aim. How I have thought of this and of these times, I shall recount hereafter. For this present, I would not, so with love I might entreat you, be any further moved. What you have said, I will consider. What you have to say, I will with patience hear, and find a time both meet to hear and answer such high things.
Now, it's easy to listen to Brutus's reaction and think Cassius was unsuccessful. After all, Brutus does not become angry or upset or charge into battle or agree that Cassius is right in all things. Brutus simply says, what you have said, I will consider. But think about Brutus's personality. He is stoic, he is serious, he is thoughtful. If you get someone who's thoughtful to say, I will consider it, it means he's going to consider it, and Cassius has made quite an impact. It's not as though when you ask your mother if you can have chocolate right before dinner and she says, maybe, but really means no. Brutus is a man of his word. as you'll see throughout the play.
Till then, my noble friend, chew upon this. Brutus had rather be a villager than to repute himself a son of Rome under these hard conditions as this time is like to lay upon us.
I am glad that my weak words have struck but thus much show of fire from Brutus.
The games are done, and Caesar is returning.
As they pass by, pluck Casca by the sleeve, and he will, after his sour fashion, tell you what hath proceeded worthy note today.
I will do so. But look you, Cassius, the angry spot doth glow on Caesar's brow, and all the rest look like a chidden train. Calpurnia's cheek is pale, and Cicero looks with such ferret and such fiery eyes as we have seen him in the Capitol, being crossed in conference by some senators.
Casca will tell us what the matter is.
Antonio.
Caesar, let me have men about me that are fat, sleek-headed men, and such as sleep o' nights. Yond Cassius has a lean and hungry look. He thinks too much. Such men are dangerous.
Fear him not, Caesar. He's not dangerous. He's a noble Roman and well given.
Would he were fatter. But I fear him not. Yet if my name were liable to fear, I do not know the man I should avoid so soon as that spare Cassius. He reads much, he is a great observer, and he looks quite through the deeds of men. He loves no plays, as thou dost, Antony. He hears no music. Seldom he smiles, and smiles in such a sort as if he mocked himself and scorned his spirit that could be moved to smile at anything. Such men as he be never at heart's ease whilst they behold a greater than themselves, and therefore are they very dangerous. I rather tell thee what is to be feared than what I fear, for always I am Caesar. Come on my right hand, for this here is deaf, and tell me truly what thou thinkst of him.
So this is an interesting part. We see a little bit more about Caesar. He talks a lot about Cassius and accurately says that Cassius should not be trusted. Cassius is lean and hungry, but he says a couple of interesting things. He says, I do not know the man I should avoid so soon as spare Cassius. But he also mentions before that, I fear him not. Caesar is saying, I don't fear him, but if I did fear people, I would fear Cassius. At the end, again, he says, I would rather tell you what you should be afraid of than what I am afraid of, because I am Caesar. We see that Caesar, on the one hand, is very perceptive. On the other hand, he's a little ignorant. He thinks it's impossible for anybody to go after him, and impossible for him to be afraid. Meanwhile, he can't even hear out of his left ear. Kind of like me. Let's continue to the second half of Scene 2, where we get to hear what all those shouts were about during Brutus and Cassius's initial conversation.
You pulled me by the cloak. You would speak with me?
Aye, Casca. Tell us what hath chanced today, that Caesar looks so sad.
Why? You were with him, were you not?
I should not then ask Casca what had chanced.
Why, there was a crown offered him, and being offered him, he put it by with the back of his hand, thus, and then the people fell a-shouting.
What was the second noise for?
Why, for that too.
They shouted thrice. What was the last cry for?
Why, for that too.
Was the crown offered him thrice?
Aye, marry was't, and he put it by thrice, every time gentler than the other, that every putting by mine honest neighbours shouted.
Alright, so that all went rather quickly. I just want to make sure we understand what has happened. Casca is asked by Brutus and Cassius what all the shouting was about. It turns out that Caesar was being offered a crown. He was offered it 3 times, and all 3 times he turned it down. Casca at the end says, Marry, he put it by thrice, 3 times, and every time gentler than the other, and at every putting by honor's neighbors shouted. So Caesar continually is rejecting the crown of emperor, because keep in mind, this is a republic at the time, and every time he does this, people cheer and shout for him.
Who offered him the crown?
Why, Antony.
Tell us the manner of it, gentle Casca.
I can as well be hanged as tell the manner of it. It was mere foolery. I did not mark it. I saw Mark Antony offer him a crown. Yet 'twas not a crown neither. 'Twas one of these coronets, and as I told you, he put it by once. But for all that, to my thinking, he would fain have had it. Then he offered it to him again, and he put it by again. But to my thinking, he was very loath to lay his fingers off it. And then he offered it the third time. He put it the third time by. And still as he refused it, the rabblement hooted and clapped their chopped hands, and threw up their sweaty nightcaps, and uttered such a deal of stinking breath because Caesar refused the crown that it almost choked Caesar, for he swooned and fell down at it. And for mine own part, I durst not laugh for fear of opening my lips and receiving the bad air.
But soft, I pray you, what? Did Caesar swoon?
He fell down in the marketplace and foamed at mouth and was speechless.
'Tis very like. He hath the falling sickness.
No, Caesar hath it not, but you and I and honest Casca, we have the falling sickness.
I know not what you mean by that, but I'm sure Caesar fell down. If the tag-rag people did not clap him and hiss him according as he pleased and displeased them, as they used to do the players in the theatre, I'm no true man.
That scene went rather quickly. I just want to make sure you notice this line. Brutus says, "He hath the falling sickness," referring to Caesar, a reference to epilepsy. And Cassius responds, "No, Caesar hath it not, but you and I, and honest Casca, we have the falling sickness." This goes along with that earlier line, that the fault is not in our stars, but in ourselves.
What said he when he came unto himself?
Marry, before he fell down, when he perceived the common herd was glad he refused the crown, he plucked me ope his doublet, and offered them his throat to cut. And I'd been a man of any occupation if I would not have taken him at a word. I would I might go to hell among the rogues. And so he fell. When he came to himself again, he said, if he had done or said anything amiss, he desired their worships to think it was his infirmity. 3 or 4 wenches where I stood cried, "Alas, good soul," and forgave him with all their hearts. But there's no heed to be taken of them. If Caesar had stabbed their mothers, they'd have done no less.
And after that he came thus sad away?
Aye.
Did Cicero say anything?
Aye, he spoke Greek.
To what effect?
Nay, and I tell you that, I'll now look you in the face again. But those that understood him smiled at one another and shook their heads. But for mine own part, it was Greek to me. I could tell you more news, too. Morellus and Flavius were pulling scarves off Caesar's images. Are put to silence. Fare you well. There's more foolery yet if I could remember it.
Will you sup with me tonight, Casca?
No, I'm promised forth.
Will you dine with me tomorrow?
Aye, if I be alive and your mind hold and your dinner worth the eating.
Good, I will expect you.
Do so. Farewell both.
What a blunt fellow is this grown to be. He was quick metal when he went to school.
So is he now in execution of any bold or noble enterprise, however he puts on this tardy form. This rudeness is a sauce to his good wit, which gives men stomach to digest his words with better appetite.
And so it is. For this time I will leave you. Tomorrow, if you please to speak with me, I will come home to you, or if you will, come home to me, and I will wait for you.
I will do so. Till then, think of the world.
And so their meeting ends, and they go their separate ways. Casca, you realize, is a rather blunt person, yet rather intelligent. He makes a lot of clever one-liners. If you get a chance, take a look back at that line about it being Greek to me. What comment does that make about the similarity between the snobby rich people and the commoners? Also, did you notice what happened to Marius and Flavius, the guys from Act 1, Scene 1? Go check it out. It's on the previous page. Just a bit more in Act 1 here.
Well, Brutus, thou art noble. Yet I see thy honourable metal may be wrought from that it is disposed. Therefore it is meet that noble minds keep ever with their likes. For who so firm that cannot be seduced? Caesar doth bear me hard, but he loves Brutus. If I were Brutus now, and he were Cassius, he should not humour me. I will this night in several hands in at his window throw, as if they came from several citizens, writings, all tending to the great opinion that Rome holds of his name, wherein obscurely Caesar's ambition shall be glanced at. And after this let Caesar seat him sure, for we will shake him, or worse days endure.
And so we end Act 1, Scene 2, and with this, really, the entire play is set. Cassius wants to convince Brutus to join the conspiracy against Caesar. We've also seen a bunch of different themes come up. The theme of power. Look at how Caesar talks about himself in the third person. The theme of hypocrisy, how some of the rich higher-ups are unable to interact with the common people, how Casca pretends that he's very coarse and rough so that people will listen to him. You see how Brutus is very calm, cool, and collected, and yet Cassius is very emotional, very heated, and very manipulative. And you see how that works, and which side is ultimately going to win. These are all things you want to keep in mind going forward. Because whenever you watch a play like this, you want to think, what message does Shakespeare have for us as the audience? Not just what's the plot, but what do we get out of it? Let's move on to scene 3.
Good evening, Casca. Brought you Caesar home? Why are you breathless, and why stare you so?
Are you not moved when all the sway of earth shakes like a thing unfirm? Oh, Cicero, I have seen tempests when the scolding winds have writhed the knotty oaks, and I have seen the ambitious ocean swell and rage and foam, to be exalted with the threatening clouds, but never till tonight, never till now, did I go through a tempest dropping fire. Either there is civil strife in heaven, or else the world, too saucy with the gods, incenses them to send destruction.
Why, saw you anything more wonderful?
A common slave, well, you know him well by sight, held up his left hand, which did flame and burn, like 20 torches joined. And yet his hand, not sensible of fire, remained unscorched. Besides, I had not since put up my sword against the Capitol. I met a lion, who glazed upon me and went surly by, without annoying me. And there were drawn upon a heap 100 ghastly women, transformed with their fear, who swore they saw men, all in fire, walk up and down the streets. And yesterday the bird of night did sit even at noonday upon the marketplace, hooting and shrieking. When these prodigies do so conjointly meet, let not men say these are their reasons. They are natural. For I believe they are portentous things unto the climate that they point upon.
Indeed, it is a strange disposed time. But men may construe things after their fashion, clean from the purpose of the things themselves. Comes Caesar to the Capitol tomorrow?
He doth. For he did bid Antonio send word to you he would be there tomorrow.
Good night, then, Casca. This disturbed sky is not to walk in.
Farewell, Cicero.
So what does this mean? Casca has seen a lion in the Capitol. He's seen a slave with his hand on fire. He has seen men on fire walking around the streets, and he has seen quite a storm in the sky. Take a look at these 2 pages and ask yourself, what does Casca think all of these strange, unusual, unnatural things mean? And once you've done that, go ahead and move on.
Who's there?
A Roman.
Casca, by your voice.
Your ear is good. Cassius, what a night is this?
A very pleasing night to honest men.
Who ever knew the heavens menace so?
Those that have known the earth so full of faults. For my part, I have walked about the streets, submitting me unto the perilous night, and thus unbraced, Casca, as you see, have bared my bosom to the thunderstone. And when the cross-blue lightning seemed to open the breast of heaven, I did present myself, even in the aim and very flash of it.
But wherefore did you so much tempt the heavens? It is the part of men to fear and tremble, when the most mighty gods by token send such dreadful heralds to astonish us.
You are dull, Casca, and those sparks of life that should be in a Roman you do want, or else you use not. You look pale, and gaze, and put on fear, and cast yourself in wonder to see the strange impatience of the heavens. But if you would consider the true cause why all these fires, why all these gliding ghosts, why birds and beasts from quality and kind, why old men, fools and children calculate, why all these things change from their ordinance, their natures, and preformed faculties to monstrous quality, why, you shall find that heaven hath infused them with these spirits to make them instruments of fear and warning under some monstrous state. Now could I, Casca, name to thee a man most like this dreadful night, that thunders, lightens, opens graves, and roars as doth the lion in the Capitol, a man no mightier than thyself or me in personal action, yet prodigious grown and fearful as these strange eruptions are.
Notice what Cassius does. Casca already thinks all of the omens mean something. But what? Well, Cassius seems to have an answer. He says, Casca, name a man most like this night that thunders, lightens, opens graves, and roars in the Capitol. He's obviously talking about Caesar. But is that really what all these omens are about?
It is Caesar that you mean, is it not, Cassius?
Let it be who it is. For Romans now have thews and limbs like to their ancestors, but woe the while. Our fathers' minds are dead, and we are governed with our mothers' spirits. Our yoke and sufferance show us womanish.
Indeed. They say the senators tomorrow mean to establish Caesar as a king, and he shall wear his crown by sea and land in every place save here in Italy.
I know where I will wear this dagger then. Cassius from bondage will deliver Cassius. Therein, ye gods, you make the weak most strong. Therein, ye gods, you tyrants do defeat. Nor stony tower, nor walls of beaten brass, nor airless dungeon, nor strong links of iron can be retentive to the strength of spirit, but life, being weary of these worldly bars, never lacks power to dismiss itself. If I know this, know all the world besides, that part of tyranny that I do bear, I can shake off at pleasure.
So can I. So every bondman in his own hand bears the power to cancel his captivity.
And why should Caesar be a tyrant then? Poor man. I know he would not be a wolf, but that he sees the Romans are but sheep. He were no lion, were not Romans hinds. Those that with haste will make a mighty fire begin it with weak straws. What trash is Rome, what rubbish, and what offal when it serves for the base matter to illuminate so vile a thing as Caesar. But, oh grief, where hast thou led me? I perhaps speak this before a willing bondman, then I know my answer must be made, but I am armed, and dangers are to me indifferent.
You speak to Casca, and to such a man that is no fleering telltale. Hold my hand. Be factious for redress of all these griefs, and I will set this foot of mine as far as who goes farthest.
There's a bargain made. Now know you, Casca, I have moved already some certain of the noblest-minded Romans to undergo with me an enterprise of honourable, dangerous consequence. And I do know by this they stay for me in Pompey's porch. For now, this fearful night, there is no stir or walking in the streets, and the complexion of the element in favours like the work we have in hand, most bloody, fiery, and most terrible.
Stand close a while, for here comes one in haste.
'Tis Cinna. I do know him by his gait. He is a friend.
Notice how different Casca's reaction is to Brutus. Brutus, he had to woo him by talking about honor and loyalty, and in the end Brutus said that he would think about it. Casca, on the other hand, he simply had to taunt him and say, well, you are a willing slave, you are unwilling to stand up, you won't kill yourself if Caesar does become a tyrant, and Casca becomes enraged and immediately joins the cause. So you see how Cassius is very clever to speak to his audience. Let's move on and finish up with Act 1.
Cinna, where haste you, sir?
To find out you. Who's that? Metellus Simba?
No, it is Casca, one incorporate to our attempts. Am I not stayed for, Cinna?
I am glad on't. What a fearful night is this. There are 2 or 3 of us have seen strange sights.
Am I not stayed for? Tell me.
Yes, you are. Oh, Cassius, if you could but win the noble Brutus to our party.
Be you content. Good Cinna, take this paper, and look you lay it in the praetor's chair where Brutus may but find it. And throw this in at his window. Set this up with wax upon old Brutus's statue. All this done, repair to Pompey's porch, where you shall find us. Is Decius Brutus and Trebonius there?
All but Metellus Simba, and he's gone to seek you at your house. Well, I will hie, and so bestow these papers as you bade me.
That done, repair to Pompey's theatre. Come, Casca, you and I will yet ere day see Brutus at his house. 3 parts of him is ours already, and the man in Tyre upon the next encounter yields him ours.
Oh, he sits high in all the people's hearts, and that which would appear offence in us, his countenance, like richest alchemy, will change to virtue and to worthiness.
Him and his worth, and our great need of him, you have right well conceited. Let us go, for it is after midnight, and ere day we will awake him, and be sure of him.
And with that, Cassius goes to wrap up his plan. He's going to leave the fake letters in order to convince Brutus that people are on his side, and we'll see where we go from there. So that's Act 1, Scene 3. Thanks for stopping by.